is the point. Now, over the last couple of years, Uganda has been so proud to announce that we actually manufacture electric cars. And this has come with a lot of pride, but also with a lot of criticism, especially with several Ugandans saying that we have an assembly plant that actually assembles different parts from different parts of the world, and they make a vehicle. And at the end of the day, we call that an innovation. Now, I would like to put that to you, Dr. Monica. The kind of vehicles that we saw in the exhibition, the trucks, the tractors, do you think, I don't know, in your opinion, were these assembled or they're actually innovative tools for Ugandans?
Before I answer that question, for me, that question is a reflection of two things. One, really the insufficient understanding of manufacturing. And it informs me of where to begin in communicating with the public. That's one, that people don't understand the whole concept of manufacturing. Because let me tell you, there is no single country where they manufacture something and they make all the parts themselves. If you want to know, shut down one country, or shut down China, and manufacturing all over the world will cease. So in manufacturing, there is what they call the supply chain. The supply chain. So in manufacturing, you design your product. You design what you want. And what you want has components. Now, there will be two types of components. There are components which are generic for everybody. And so you will source those from those who manufacture those components. Because if you are going to set up a factory that manufactures all the components, then that's going to be such a gigantic manufacturing factory. And it's unlikely that you will achieve it. So globally, there is a supply system for manufacturing. So you order parts, for example, bolts, nuts, those things which are common to everywhere. Just like if I'm building my house, it doesn't mean that I'm going to do everything, unless you are saying you are assembling your house. But so there are those parts. Then there are second group of components are those unique components which are yours. They are the ones that set your particular product aside, apart. That's why this Chira Motors bus doesn't look like Tata bus, because it is different. It's coming from your design. Now you have two ways of sourcing those parts. One, you design and ask a manufacturer who is somewhere. Right now, the easiest place to order things is China. You send them your specific design. They have those factories which custom manufacture for you, and they send you your parts. These are usually unique shapes, unique designs. They give you a certain kind of comfort which sets your particular product apart from the others. The second way to get this is to make them yourself. So for you to manufacture, you need a supply chain. Those things come generic, which fit from everybody, and they're usually the cheapest. You buy from others. Specific, customized, manufactured for you from those who have already chains. They have already lines manufacturing those things, and all they have to do is just to customize something small for you. And then the ones that you make for yourself, that you manufacture yourself, you fabricate yourself. So that bus, as you see it, it's beauty. The entire body and the chassis enters Chira Motors as sheets and pieces of steel. They are bought from roofings, they are bought from steel and tube, they are bought, you just see iron, steel things, yeah, and bars, and they are taken into Chiramotos. And they are worked on to be converted into that body. Now there are parts that we custom design and order them from China. And China makes those ones specifically for Chiramotos. You will not find another vehicle in the world. And they are designed by us. They are designed here in Uganda. And China really distinguished themselves in doing this. They do this for the whole world. They do it for America, they do it for UK, they do it for Japan, they do it for every part of the world. And now when you bring those things, whether you have made them home here yourself, or you have custom designed and ordered them, or you have ordered them from a general supplier, you assemble them. So assembly is part and parcel of the manufacturing process. It's a step in the manufacturing process. So I told you that when I hear that question, I just understand that because many people in Uganda are not familiar with the processes of manufacturing. They see things, or you visit a factory and all you see is machines running, but you really don't know the background of it. Then the second is that there are people in our population who somehow feel gratified by thinking their country cannot do this, because that's the second origin. There are people who genuinely don't know, and they are asking this question because they don't know. But because these people think that assembly is an inferior step to manufacturing, they are asking that because they want somehow to convince themselves that Uganda is incapable of doing this. So we manufacture the buses. We import some components. Some are generic, some are custom made, and we make some of the components from here in Uganda. That's the manufacturing that we are talking about. We are not saying that Chiramotos must make every. That bus has over 30,000 parts. Just that one bus. By the time you set up lines to make all those, and there is nobody in the world who tries to do that. Even Toyota, they don't. It will be so futile. So even at our best, because we have set a target, we are targeting to localize 65% of the parts to be made in Uganda. It does not mean that Chiramotos is going to, by 2030, 65% of the parts will be made here. Because before, you could not tell somebody that come and set up a factory to do this. Who will buy your things? There is no car manufacturing in the country. Why should I set up? But now when you set up a company, a plant like Chiramotos, then it gives what we call off-take confidence. It gives off-take confidence. So now we have seen companies making components, making brakes, making chairs, making this. They want to come into the ecosystem. We have companies now putting together batteries. We have companies, because there is an opportunity for off-take. So this is how a factory or a company like Chiramotos, it's called an industry of industries. And the ripple effect which is going to be in the economy is going to be felt. Within the next 3 years, you will see so many people. Already we have a lot of computers or small computers in that bus. We were importing them. Now we can manufacture them from here. That's now a separate industry. And those people have got the confidence because Chiramotos can buy these things. So for the information of Ugandans, what Chiramotos is doing is the manufacturing process globally. It is not inferior, and you can walk with your head high. When you see that beautiful bus, on the road. It has come out of the brains of your brothers and sisters, black ones like you with this skin here, and they're educated here. Even you can get there. Don't eliminate yourself and you comfort yourself that after all, we can't manufacture. So for me, I don't have to participate. Just feel proud. Just feel proud. Yeah.
Well, Doctor, that's very insightful. But also, the other sectors that have also been touched, especially agriculture, when it comes to innovations, those are some of the sectors that Ugandans have looked at and, appreciate the innovations there. People have really come up with so many innovations. But there is a question on the sectors themselves that currently should be looked at very keenly when it comes to innovation and science. One of those sectors is infrastructure, for example. You're looking at technology, us building softwares, building computers, and so on and so forth. Are we also tapping into these spaces, especially currently as we drive innovation in Uganda?
Yes, actually, we have 8 industrial value chains that we are following, 8 of them. However, these 8 touch almost every sector in the country because science and technology, that's why it's no longer a ministry, because it is not like the other ministries which have a product on their own to deliver. We input into the different sectors in our society. So you started with agriculture. What many people have talked about the challenges in our agriculture, and we seem to point it's the lack of capacity to mechanize. But actually the problem is not at mechanization. The problem is in creating value as an output of agriculture. When you have value at the end of the value chain, then the money enters that, it will grow. It will grow. Even the government, most governments just come into agriculture to regulate, to make sure things like diseases are controlled, standards are kept. But in terms of innovation, it just comes in from the private sector. So the limiting factor for agriculture is not production. The limiting factor for agriculture is the poor value addition, because we are selling the output at very low prices. And so the money which flows back into that particular value chain is little. For example, if you grow maize and put in, it's easy to add technology to maize, it is just fertilizer. Kill the weeds, fertilize it, and you get a bumper harvest. What happens? Nobody buys the maize, the prices drop. And people are selling maize at 200 shillings. Why? Because we don't have a value chain for maize. We are not converting it into value-added products. So the consumption, the value chain is very short. The consumption is kawunga, school children, a little bit of feeding the military and feeding, and after that, nothing more. Nothing more. And when you convert it to kwete or a bit of making the kwete, you know kwete? Kwete now, how much is that? So the products at which we are consuming, the outputs of agriculture, demand that we extend the value chain. Because once you have an extended value chain, then automatically mechanization will come in. Because you will be able to suck up the products consistently, because now if people put in fertilizer, they grow maize, irrigate, because the other limiting factor is water. I'm going to sell the maize at a loss. Do you want me to do that again? So we are focusing on this value chain at 2 points. One, productivity acceleration. We are innovating things that help us to produce with as low inputs as possible. Make production very cheap. I wrote a small piece on social media. I was just thinking around and wrote something which I put on my Facebook called the cheap milk economy. You can find it. I think you'll be inspired. We have not yet understood that in order to industrialize agriculture, we need to achieve low cost of production. So the raw materials need to be produced cheaply. Now, many people misunderstand and they think that if the raw materials, if milk is sold cheaply, then the farmer is not getting. The issue is to innovate such that you produce at as low cost as possible. It's not expense, it's not the final price you sell at. It is the difference between the cost of production and the selling price which matters. For us to drive agriculture, we need to produce at commercial rates, and then we can industrialize. Now, when you industrialize, I'll be sucking up all the maize. So the prices are not going to fall. I'm going to have consistent price. And a farmer can predict this year, if I put up my 10 acres, I'm going to get this, there is a market there. So that's the biggest challenge. Then people will automatically buy the irrigation systems. They will automatically, so we are focusing at productivity acceleration and then the value addition. And during the Science Week, we had a Uganda supermarket. A whole supermarket full of only made in Uganda, grown in Uganda, value added in Uganda. Because when you do that, then you provide a market. What is failing agriculture is the lack of backfeed of money to keep driving the productivity.
Well, talking about that backfeed a little bit, many people claim that they don't have the necessary resources to add value. For example, let's talk about matoke. When matoke comes in and it's a lot, usually it gets ripe and people can no longer actually consume that matoke. But then there are companies that do add value, maybe by making crisps, drying it so it can last longer. But these are also not accessible, especially to our people back in the villages. How can we find innovative solutions, especially low cost, like you said, low cost, innovative ideas back for our locals in the villages, in the rural, because they do feed the urban places and they feed the market. So how can we trace back to those people in Masaka and Mitoma that are growing matoke, and how can innovation reach them as well in this field?
Our agriculture in Uganda is largely subsistence. Small-scale subsistence. It's individualized, and that makes standardization a little bit difficult. So if I have one garden, I grew it for subsistence, to vary my own diet, that today I will eat imbwazirume, tomorrow I will eat chesansa, so that I don't have the same taste of matoke. So the garden is mixed. Secondly, because we produce at subsistence, the cost of production is very high. Now, a person making crisps from matoke, if they are going to buy a bunch of matoke at 30,000, they are going to make a loss. And that will be the end. It is just a matter of days until their business is down. And so they can no longer consistently consume. So that's why strategically we are targeting these two. How can we produce in the same production system but mimic commercial production? Right now, while the farmers are saying, oh, we don't have anybody buying matoke, but we have orders for matoke internationally. And we can't fulfill them. But when you go to a farm, you find a mixture of bananas. Now, that's not standardized to international standard. It is not standardized. Even flour, when you're going to make flour, flour from Chisansa, flour from Mbazirume, flour from Ndibwa Balangira is different. So we need now to go, when you go in a community, grow this particular variety of bananas. Apply science such that we can harvest matoke throughout the year. Instead of all of them coming up because what happens when you're using rain-fed agriculture, matoke requires a lot of water. Now, during a certain period, we don't have enough water. So the plants don't sprout. When it rains, they all begin to sprout. It takes 9 months to flower. So all the matoke comes towards the end of the year. And now what do you expect? That this person who had a business was sitting there with equipment, with the staff, and the people who are ordering flour, we are waiting for you only for this time. So we are working on the science to make sure that even though we have smallholder farmers, they farm commercially. If you have your quarter acre, plant one type of banana and then irrigate it and apply a manure and other nutrients such that in that quarter you produce a lot of matoke, and it can be predictable. Because if you irrigate, then we don't have to bunch all the bananas towards the end of year. That's what causes the glut. So this is what we are working on in science. Right, that's what we call the productivity acceleration, is working on making sure that the agriculture, if you're growing cassava, then let this entire village or parish grow one variety of cassava. And then let's structure it in such a manner that we'll have supply of cassava throughout the year. But everybody plants at a go, and everybody is planting their own type. And then the agronomic standards are not the same. So it becomes very difficult to consistently provide supply to international standards to the market which we want. So we have market for banana flour, but we are not able to fulfill it because we have not applied the science in it. So the other place we are applying...
This aspect, you're saying is not only in the mechanization part.
No, it's not only the mechanization. In fact, we have such small units. We have category A and category B products. And most of the category A, where people are going to work on small acreage, less than 4 acres, it doesn't really make sense for you to own a tractor. So if you need access to a tractor, we have innovated a model. You saw that Pharisee tractor there. That's a tractor. We are localizing the making. Now we are able to make all the attachments here using material sourced from here and fabricated here, and we are working to make sure that we localize as much of it as possible. But what we are innovating is also, if I have 4 acres and I need access to a tractor, that is just 1 day of plowing. Can I access it? So we have built a business model where we will have businessmen at sub-county or even county level, and you have this tractor here, and people can order tractor services without having to own a tractor. And it is there, whichever one you want, harrowing, you want support with planting, you want support with harvesting, but in that region we can order. So that is another innovation. So we are innovating a lot of access. Then smaller farm applications, smaller farm equipment, which don't cost so much. Because tractors, we have fewer tractors in Uganda here than we had in 1960s when the colonialists were still here in the 1950s. Because for them, they were doing a lot of commercial farming. That tractor is kept busy every day. But you can't buy a tractor which works for only 3-4 days in a year. That is really not being financially literate. So then we are also focusing on adding value. You know, I was shocked that a war in Ukraine affected the price of chapati in Uganda. Why? How? Because somebody has been able to get flour from wheat in Ukraine to the Ugandan market. But they have opened innovations, you know. You go to every part of Africa, there is chapati. Who innovated this chapati thing? So you are able to eat wheat from Ukraine in every household. I don't eat wheat. And when I go out, especially in hotels and what, I really have a lot of problems finding what to eat, especially for breakfast. 90% of what is served is wheat-based. But which products are from matoke that can be eaten in the UK if it's by non-Ugandan? Because I'm not Ukrainian and I'm eating wheat. Does a person in New York, a German person sitting in New York, do they find a product of matoke there and they are able to eat it? Because that is the back feed of the money. So this inability to add value to products grown in here, and it is consistent. You look, our value chains are so short. They are so short. You grow millet, you either eat it as millet bread or make porridge or make marua. They are all very cheap. They don't add a lot of value. So, and this was, this is not by us. It's a legacy we inherited. When the colonialists came, they promoted more and put more effort in the crops that they were interested in for their industries in Europe. So they put in cotton, they put in coffee, they put in tobacco, they put in tea, because then they could just pick this and take them that side. Now, for the food crops, there was no market. Every household was encouraged to grow their own food and eat it and sell. That's why they call them cash crops. And the food crop is not seen as a cash crop. So there was no value addition at all. So we inherited that system, and up to now in our education system, you don't find a lot of training on value addition on cassava. A few things, a few projects here come and try here and there, or we do it academically, but we don't see a big market for it. It's now that we are trying, like through what Professor Muranga is doing, to commercialize. And it requires that you have to show people how to utilize this product, this strange product. Just like I sell you wheat, and there's a recipe for bread. And it's a whole value chain. There is not just wheat, but there is yeast, there is sugar, there is milk, there is cooking oil. And I will tell you, and since I'm supplying you with all those things, then you will really buy quite a number of things from me. So for us here, it is cassava. Go dig it, cook. Make chips, make something to eat at home, or make so our value chains are restricted to us. Even within Uganda, there are people who don't eat matoke. There are people who don't. So the market is very small. So we are focusing on value addition, and our products in the next 10 years, we will see ourselves in a different place. Yes, we have, I don't know if you managed the Science Week to test what we call matoke salad.
Not yet.
Matoke salad will drive the consumption of matoke all over the world.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Doctor, there for those wonderful insights, especially into the agriculture sector. That was very, very, very important. We're going to take a last break and we'll return with our final segment. But Doctor, we want to now look into young people's innovations. Young people are on fire. If you go right now to Makerere University, people are trying. You go to secondary schools, schools have different competitions, innovation challenges, but there's no motivation. And this is where I want you to bring out the position of government on this one. How is government going to motivate, especially the young people, to get to innovate more, especially when they're still young? We are taking a quick breather. We'll return shortly. Stay with us. This is The Point.